What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another crazy episode of the Coach's Corner. I believe this is what we're calling it, and it has been a hot minute since I had Christie on the podcast to talk all things ultra running, but life got busy. Christie kept ditching me, and finally I got her back on the podcast to have another coaching corner about mindset and more or less how we handle our mind in ultra running. Thank you so much, Christie, for being on the podcast.
Thanks. I feel like my podcasting career is really taking off lately.
Yeah, you are going to be like one of the top notch, at least on mine. I mean, already returned guest. You've been on the Everyday Ultra podcast so much recently with the Coaches Corner on there, and there's just the Coaches Roundtable on the Everyday Ultra podcast. So you're becoming a pro.
Yeah, I think I'm going to be a professional co-host one day.
There you go. There you go. Well, I
Yes.
will. I
Yes.
can give you an application. You can fill it out whenever you're ready.
Oh, yeah, maybe you'll accept me. I don't know. We'll see.
So true. So true. Awesome. So you and I have been talking about having this conversation about mindset more or less just because like we as coaches see and experience so many different aspects of people's mindsets in ultra running and how it truly can be detrimental in the sense of, having not to say horrible mindsets, but in a sense, a mindset that will get the best of you. And then also mindsets of people that are just like off the wall, great. And you're like, wow, I wish everyone would think and treat themselves like this. But then we got talking and I was like, hey, have you read the book Mindset by Carol Dweck? Yeah, something like that. And you're like, actually, I got halfway through it and I couldn't listen to it.
I didn't even get that far, to be honest.
So why didn't you get that far in that book? And then obviously I know you have officially read it now, but what do you think of it now that you've read all of it?
Yeah, so I'll tell you like the background of why I even started reading that book is, we both have been coached and mentored by Joe Corcione. And early on, I asked him, I was like, hey, give me some, books to read to like benefit me. And that was one of them. And so I started it in like within the first chapter, I stopped reading it. And I probably tried to read it like 3 different times before stopping. And then ultimately, we had this conversation. I was like, I should read that book before we do this podcast recording. And so I had to listen to it on audiobook. But my issue with it is that like I would start it and, I'm reading about the growth mindset and then I'd read about the fixed mindset. And I'm like, these people exist in the world. I'm like, who actually believes things can't be changed? So part of that problem was because I feel like myself, I've had a growth mindset my entire life. Like I've known no other way of how to do things. That's just like my, how it came up through life. And so I've been that person. But it was really interesting, like reading the book and trying to figure out like these people really exist out there. And then as I got through the book, I did actually gain a little bit of knowledge that has been beneficial, I will say.
There you go. So it was a good recommended book for sure. And just to kind of go over like if you read this book or you have heard about it, the author talks about there's 2 types of mindsets within people. One is the growth mindset where in a sense, you are always growing. So like when there's a failure, it is not a failure that you failed and you can't come out of it. It's a lesson learned. I know that's kind of cutting really the definition of that, but it's a quick way to understand it. And then the other thing would be the fixed mindset where like Chrissy said, nothing's going to change. You think something is fixed. It's not going to change in the sense of like, if you stink at something, you cannot get better at it. It's a kind of a good way to put it, which is, I know Chrissy said this, is hard to believe that there are people out there like this. And there are, but I do feel like in the ultra world, we do experience a lot of growth mindset people, which is really cool. Like we are all like, I want to do better. How can I do better? I can do better. But occasionally we find ourselves in fixed mindsets, I'm sure. But within this, to bring it into ultra running, we hear this a lot. And I know this is the first topic that we wanted to talk about. Like, I know I love Killian Korth. He talks about delusional self-belief. And you and I have talked about this, and I've talked about this with a couple of different people, and Killian being one of them. So we're not talking crap about Killian and his opinion on this, but I do think it's something nice to talk, or something we should talk about in the aspect of when someone has delusional self-belief. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? So what do you think, Christy? And I guess maybe if you don't mind, explain what the delusional self-belief is.
Yeah, delusional self-belief is like an unwavering belief in yourself. So when I think of it, it's like saying I'm going to win like the triple crown of
Yeah.
200s, you know? So obviously like Killian probably said that to himself at one point and then he made it happen. Now, if
Mhm.
I say that to myself, I'm like, you are fucking crazy
Yeah.
because I've not even ran a single 200-mile race, you know? So that's my struggle with it is that I feel like just saying random things to yourself like, "Oh yeah, it'd be cool to win a 200 miler," but am I actually physically, capable of doing that? So that's always been my struggle with it. But I think part of it too is you don't want to be like so delusional that you're picking like things that you have no like thought process that you could actually like, accomplish one day. So I kind of like the thinking that like um thinking about like something I want to do, acknowledge the data, but choose to believe the outcome is still certain. So, what I mean by that is it's not about being delusional, but about indifference to the odds. So, if you have like blisters at mile 80, you tell yourself you're going to finish no matter what. That's what I think about with, you know, delusional self belief. It's like your feet may really, really hurt, but you're going to finish it regardless.
Yeah, and I always like to say this, and it's kind of funny, but like there has to be some proof. Like there needs to be some proof in the pudding. I guess is a good like little saying, but like delusional self belief is, I think, really, really, really important. But it also can't be to the extreme of someone that has never run a 200 saying, I'm going to be the Triple Crown winner when they have no clue how their body or themselves will react with 200 miles. And it could be a goal that is, I'm all for setting outlandish goals and like having this delusional self belief in that aspect, but then also knowing that there's a chance you're going to get close and then realize like that may be out of reach, but I am 10 times further than I ever thought I could be. So I am all for that too with the delusional self belief, but I'm right there with you where it can't just be something completely outlandish that like just doesn't even make sense, and if there is no data to prove it, meaning like if I ever thought I could go out and compete in some crazy race where like there's just no data to show that you can actually do anything of that nature. Now mind you, you could put in the work and continue to work towards it, but sometimes there's just that little bit of maybe talent, genetics, something that isn't going to get you to where you want to be in some aspects.
Yeah, and I think the best way for us to apply this is with the way that we coach our athletes. We obviously coach on rate of perceived exertion, but we're coaching them on evidence. We don't hope that they can finish. We build a training block so undeniable that they know they can. And I think that's the best way to do it. Like you can look at all the data, but when you've done the work, you have the evidence to back that up. And this is like Joe's favorite quote about affirmations in the mirror.
Mhm.
What is it exactly? It's you make a stack of undeniable proof. Isn't that?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like shouting affirmations in the mirror will be beneficial, but when you have the undeniable stack of evidence in some aspect, like there's nothing better than that. Like Chrissy and I were literally just talking about like affirmations in the mirror beforehand. Like you can literally scream at the top of your lungs, chant yourself up and get super, super pumped, but they're just words coming out of your mouth. And don't get me wrong, words are very, very powerful. But when you have the proof and you have all of the evidence or the work, the training, all of that, that will get you so much further. And I think a part of it too is like with you said as coaches, like we are literally stacking up all of this evidence. We're doing all of the training, we're doing all the back-to-back long runs, we're doing all the craziness and getting them prepared for the race, and then they're going to go do a distance that they've never done before. And how do they know they're going to do that distance? It's because they have all of the evidence from the training.
Yeah, exactly. And like with the talking about affirmations, like since we just kind of jumped to that, I brought it up, my bad. Um, I think affirmations is a great way. They're like a pre-workout or a primer. But you got to be careful because your brain might see the gap between your words and your current reality. And so your brain's like a super good like BS detector. And it's gonna realize that like if you tell yourself, I'm gonna win the Triple Crown, but you have no like evidence or anything like that or like any like inkling of maybe you've never even done an ultra, your brain's going to be like, yeah, right. That's not going to actually help you at all. But if you are thinking of like affirmations, like maybe you are training for your first 100 miler and you tell yourself, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do my first 100 miler. You're going to run a 100-mile race. You're going to like most likely take more action because there's going to be a little bit of discomfort in that because you don't know for sure if you can do a 100-miler. Like when you do your first 100-miler, like super scary, like you want to do it, you want to be successful. So there's a little bit of discomfort in the gap of like what that affirmation in your current reality. And so you're more likely to take action to resolve that discomfort. So that's how they can actually work for your advantage as well. So, you say you're going to do something and you do it. And I think too, like that kind of comes down to your thoughts. I saw this quote and I really liked it. And it was, the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. I thought that was super cool because it's so true. Like what we think is what is like, that's how we react. So if you like tell yourself, I can't do it, then most likely you won't.
It's like I love that quote. I haven't seen it or heard it, and I saw it. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so true, because we listen to this thing talking in our head at all times. You know what I mean? And when we're out in a race and it's getting hard and we're telling ourselves like, we can do this, we can do this. But you have this little voice in the back of your mind saying maybe something else, really empowering it and like pushing it to be more positive will get you way further than not, and as we all know in ultra running, like we have the highs and we have the lows, and sometimes the lows can be really, really rough. And if you have that growth positive mindset, and or you've done affirmations where you're like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. Yes, it's maybe a little hoopoo la la in the craziness, but like it will truly make a difference in the long run if you have that, compared to someone that's like super negative where like, I don't know if I can do this, I'm second guessing it all the time. Because when you have that low, those little nagging thoughts will come in. And if they were positive ones and or like affirmations, you're going to get so much further, do so much better, compared to it being a negative one that you've kept in the back of your mind. It'll pop up and be super strong and be like, I told you couldn't do this, and you should have known better. So like, even if it sounds crazy, and even if you're like, I'm sounding insane, this is wild, doing little things like that can actually make a huge difference. And it's really about the things that we say to ourselves in our mind that makes a difference, compared to, seeing some evidence. Don't get me wrong, the evidence is good as well, but it's like a weird combination of all of it that really makes a very powerful person in a sense.
Do you ever have a mantra for yourself?
Oh yeah.
You want to share it?
Yeah. Well, I have a whole bunch, I should say, and everyone probably knows this, but like my big thing is like, I'm a bad bitch, and you know that.
Yeah, I love it.
Like I will literally be running and like something is going wrong and I'm like, oh no, like it's happening, I'm spiraling, and I will literally just sit there and be like, you're a bad bitch. Like in my head, that is what I'm telling myself the entire time. And then you sent me a song once, and so now like sometimes like, oh, need to play that song, I'm gonna listen to that song, and I will just listen to that, and then like that, like it just gets me going. Do you have one?
I don't really. Sometimes I cycle between different ones. I totally stole yours because I think you might have done a podcast like way early on where you said that was your mantra, and so I stole that. So I use that one when I really need it. Like that's my deep dark mantra. It's like, you're a bad bitch, but a lot of times too, I really like The Obstacle is the Way. Like that's a great book. And so I always think about that quote, The Obstacle is the Way. And then, just thinking about that concept of you got to just do it, but outside of that, I mean, how do you think of a better mantra than I'm a bad bitch? I mean, that works for everybody.
It really does. And what's so funny, as a coach, I say it to so many people and they'll like kind of giggle, and I'm like, no, I'm being dead ass serious. Like, you are a bad bitch, you can do this. And even like guys, they'll kind of like laugh about it, and I'm like, haha, but in my mind I'm like, no, I'm being so true. Like, remember me telling you this, because it just fires my butt up when I'm out there and I'm in a low. And then, it just really gets me going. So it is something that has always worked for me. I've used it in a 50K. I used it in my 200. You know what I mean? Like, it just lights a fire under my butt. And I'm so thankful that I have it.
Yeah. We should share it with more people. More people should call themselves a bad bitch.
Yeah, 100%. If you haven't, you need to try it mid-race, mid-long run, when life is sucking. Just remember that we have told you, you are a bad bitch. and now you need to use this little mantra to get through. But in the sense of talking of mantras, why do you feel like they're so powerful out there?
I just think when you're in the suck, when it's really hard, the things that you say to yourself, like right then, is what matters the most. And having a mantra is something that you can fall back on, kind of like being a bad bitch. You've got that like in your back pocket. So anytime that it's really hard and you need to pull yourself out of it, you've got your go-to. So I think that's why they're important. I know some people will do like a mantra for the year. So
Mhm.
it's like, another good one. I did this one last year because I did my first 100-mile race last year. It was fuck around and find out.
Oh,
Yeah, that one's really good too. And you
yeah.
can apply that one to a lot of ones too. Anytime you're doing something new, you gotta fuck around and find out. But yeah, that's why I like them. What about you?
I would say the same reason. And I'm gonna tell this is a funny story. So when I was in high school, we had like a mantra. And I won't say it completely because it's a lot of bad words. And I mean I cuss all the time, but it was FB words, get money. No clue why. I have genuinely no clue why, but as seniors in high school, that was like what we would see friends in the hallways and like chant that to one another and then get in trouble by the teachers. And it was just a giant like it brought us all together. We were all graduating. We're like, yeah, screw this class. Like, it was the craziest thing. And now, like, as I'm out on a trail and I need something to get me through, like, it's something that just like lights this fire under me, mind you, and no one else knows about it. And I've, I have been in the last 2 miles in a 200-mile race screaming, I'm a bad bitch at like 3 o'clock in the morning down an intersection that luckily there was no cars, but it made me run 10 times faster and it just like pumped me up. And I feel like that is where I find like mantras just help, even if it's to yourself or if it's out loud, they just really can strike a chord and completely alter the way of things that are happening in a race. Like they could be going down the drain and you fall into this mantra and then you got it, you're screaming it, you're feeling it, and it just changes the whole trajectory of your race.
Yeah. And that reminds me when I did my first 100-miler, which was Leadville, Joe paced me for over 30 miles. And when I was having a real bad time out there, this is probably Joe's mantra. He doesn't even know it, but he says, let's go or let's fucking go a lot, LFG.
Mhm.
It's almost like an everyday ultra mantra too, I feel like.
Yeah.
But he probably said that like 100 times to me out there. He was just constantly saying it. And it's really good too when you're an ultra and your pacer knows your mantra or has a mantra for you. It's just your brain's not processing anything. So like hearing the same thing over and over again, like definitely like gets you moving, gets you going.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And it's funny too, because like you said, I'm sure Joe doesn't even realize it may be his mantra, but like I have told multiple athletes, like, let's fucking go, like all the time. And it gets everyone amped up. And, I'm not saying it's our thing at the Everyday Ultra, but I know for sure it's definitely like an ultra running thing. I've said it to so many people. So many people have said it to me. And it's three simple words in reality. You know what I mean? But it will fire everyone up when you say it to them.
Yeah, for sure. I love it.
Yeah, yeah. So I know we're kind of like went to affirmations. Anything else that you can say about affirmations? Good, bad, ugly?
I think it's a practice and it's something that personally I want to work on a little bit more just because I feel stupid doing them. And I'm a big fan of journaling. Like I like to journal every single morning. Sometimes I'll journal again later in the day, just depending on like if I need to get the thoughts out of my brain.
Mhm.
Like stream of conscious journaling is my favorite. Just like write down everything you're thinking. And if you're not doing journaling, you should definitely try that because when you like to give you a perfect example is if you lay in bed at night and you're thinking about everything that happened that day, if you journaled and wrote all that down before, like you're probably not going to be sitting there like stressing about it at night. It'll definitely benefit you. But anyways, back to affirmations. I like it's funny because you always think about people like staring at themselves in the mirror saying their affirmations. Just write it down in your journal. Like you don't have to stare at yourself in the mirror. But I think it can be beneficial. And that's definitely like something that I want to improve on because I think a lot of times we are bad about like negative self-talk, just telling
Mm.
yourself like, you're so dumb. Like, I can't believe you did this, blah, blah, blah. So I think it's good to try to do that. And even if it is a little bit delusional, I think within the realm of proving yourself right goes a long way.
Oh, for sure, for sure. So first, I have to backtrack a little bit. I do something every morning, and I call it a brain dump. So like, I'll
Yeah.
wake up, have a cup of coffee, and I will journal as much as I need to, as little as I need to every morning to just bitch and get all of it out, whatever it is. And then I'm good. And sometimes I'll have to do it more than once. Like if I get worked up, I'm writing it down, so I can completely relate. And I do it every single day, sometimes more than once a day. And I genuinely feel like it has brought me so much clarity in life in the sense of like, I don't feel caught up by like the annoyance of something bothering me and I'm consistently thinking about it. I write it down, I say what I need to say about it, and then it's kind of out, which has helped me in the sense of like just having a clear mind. Well, then, and to hear other things, you know what I mean? To like focus on other things in that aspect. But bringing that to like the delusional self belief too is like, I may do something dumb and write it down to think it through and then just realize like, oh, like this is normal. Like humans do stupid shit like this. It's okay. You know what I mean? Or I'll have something going on and I'm like, I need to stop doing this. And this is the best way, the best approach to do it. And then like I've seen it on paper, I get to kind of reapproach it. And so then I always have that like, well, I wrote it down and need to fix it, or I can fix it. And would be the way, this is how I thought about it. So even, like you mentioned screaming affirmations in a window or a mirror and looking at yourself. I've never personally done that. I can honestly say like, I rarely look at myself in the mirror, which is hilarious to think about. But I will write down the things that I need to do or remember or say, or like, just really important things to me, because that's my way of like remembering things and or holding myself accountable, because it's written. I have to see it. I see it multiple times. I have a whiteboard off to the side that like I write things that I need to like remember. And it could be like, it's never been you're a bad bitch, but like, if I wanted to really remember that, I would literally write it down. But I think that's where like the affirmations kind of falls, is like everybody really has a different way of how they could handle it, and or if it's something that they can believe. Because I remember the first time I've ever like had an affirmation in a sense with myself, I'm like, this is the dumbest thing, I can't believe I'm doing this, you know what I mean? And then randomly I was in a race and I was struggling going up a little vert in Florida, and I'm like, you are a bad bitch, you can do this. And then it clicked, like that was just my thing. And it was that, and I used it, and I always used it. And I feel like that's where it comes into play of like, some people just need to try it out. Maybe it's journaling things down, finding your affirmation sense that way, or having the clear mind to be able to find your affirmations and use them more productively. But it's so different for everybody, and we just don't know.
Yeah, for sure. I like that though. I mean, I don't know if journaling fits into mindset. I feel like it does, because it helps improve your mindset, right?
100%. It's the
Yeah.
growth mindset.
Yeah. But I do agree with you. Like, I think journaling, helps you clear your mind so that your mind can be available to, focus on other things. And that kind of like makes me think about the other topic on this list, which is pain versus suffering. I really, really like this topic. So I'll say that I like this because I read the book, The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. I read this book last year before Leadville, and it literally like blew my mind. I think I've read it twice, and then I've read 2 of his other books since then. And ultimately, like the concept in the book is that we suffer more. We create our own suffering because we live too much in the past or too much in the future. And we need to be in the present, in the now, essentially. So like pain is unavoidable, but the suffering is optional, and we're creating that suffering. And kind of like what that looks like is like the pain could be a blister or chafing. That, can be inedible, unfortunately, in ultras. But suffering is the story that we tell ourselves. It's the extra, it's the pain that we add. And then I think in Buddhism, they actually talk about the second arrow concept, which basically the first arrow is the event, the pain. So it's like the blister, or like the big hill that you're currently climbing. The second arrow is the one that you shoot, which is the suffering, which is saying like, I want this hill to be over with. I'm over it. I'm tired. Like, I just want to be done with this. It's all that extra story that you're telling yourself that just makes things worse. And that story, that suffering is optional, and you can opt out of it by staying in the present moment. Focus on the next step, not the next 50 miles, focus on just getting over that hill, not like wanting it to be over. So whatever the present moment contains, accept it as if you had chosen it.
Yes. And that book is amazing. I read it probably a long, long time ago. So maybe I need to reread it. But
For
it is
sure.
so true. And us as ultra runners, how many of us, I'm sure yourself included, have gotten to a race and be like, shit, I have 50 more miles, or oh, I did this, I have this left. And oh my goodness. And that's like, we talk so much about like taking it down to just an aid station, but you're even taking it a step further, which is, I think, super important, is like taking it down to like the next step that you have to take. Be in the now, be really, really present. And then I love the aspect of the pain versus suffering and the double arrow concept with Buddhism. And I feel like this kind of goes maybe a little off topic here, but also in the sense of like having the fixed mindset, because we talked about this where like, maybe on the sense of like going up a hill, right? So like in that suffering, you can suffer. I can't do this. I can't do this. Like that is a fixed ass mindset of like I can't do it. I'm just going to give up and I'm not going to do it. Like we don't want to be that type of way. So like in that pain versus suffering aspect, like you don't want to ever let the pain I'm sorry, you don't want to ever let the suffering be more extreme than what it actually is. Like, yes, it sucks and it's going to suck, but that's just inevitable. Like you said, more than likely you're going to experience something in a race that doesn't go as planned. It's going to suck and it's going to be, what are you going to do to come through it? And this, comes back into line with the like fixed mindset and the growth mindset and the aspect of like, it is truly up to you. We really hold the reins to like how we manage everything in a race, because it is genuinely up to you and what's going through your head. There are things that are, in a sense can be helpful and not so helpful. Like a prime example of if you have crew and pacers, like they can genuinely help you, but they could also really hurt you. But they could also hurt you, but not let it affect you because your mindset is in the right place. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. And like I think that's why this is one of the reasons why I think I love ultras, is because when you go and do a 100-mile race, you have to live in the present moment. Otherwise, you're going to have a really bad time out there. Because like if you're 5 hours in and you have another, 20 plus hours to go potentially, if you have that thought 5 hours into the race, you're going to have a really bad time out there.
Mm-hmm.
So it like I think a lot of people are. I'm definitely one of them. I struggle with living in the present moment, and I'm a planner, so there's nothing wrong with planning, but you got to like plan and then get out of that, thinking so much about the future, like come back to the present. So doing ultras like forces you into the present moment. So I do really well in my races because like I feel forced to, because I don't want all that stuff. You're already gonna like have so much pain in a 100 mile. Like, don't create all this extra suffering. I struggle with like training runs, and the easier or the shorter the run, the more that I suffer because I just want it to be over, especially if it's like a recovery run. I'm like, okay, I'm just, you're just going through the motions at that point. And so it's like when you're counting down the time on your run or your long run, you're thinking about the run ending. So you're in the future at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when like you really start to struggle with those runs, and because you're creating that suffering thinking about the future. So if you just like stop, like my trick for it is I start to focus on my cadence when I'm running. um
Mm.
yeah, because I don't like, if I'm not running and I need to come back to the present, I do like box breathing. That one's really good because like you hold your breath. You can't think about anything else if you hold your breath. Like
Yeah.
try it out and see how that goes. But if I'm running, I'm not going to think about my breath, because then you just like mess it up and get a side stitch. So I think about cadence instead. And then
Mm.
you're kind of like thinking about your footsteps, and it makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah, I love this. So I know we can talk about this because we've both done it, but I get asked all the time, how do you run on a treadmill? Like I cannot do it. It's impossible. Blah 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 blah. I think you have told me it once before too. Like I can't believe you ran so much on a treadmill, but I do know now that you have ran a 50K on a treadmill, and you did the 4x4x48, or also half of that on a treadmill.
All of it on the treadmill.
All of it, all of it. Damn, never mind. So all of it on the treadmill. And it's so hard for me. I don't know if it is for you, but it is so hard for me to explain to people how I do it. Do you find it's very hard for you as well?
I mean, I just tell them I do it. I
Yeah,
just do
same. Same. And then they're like, well, but like how? And I'm like, I just don't think about it. And that is very hard to explain, but this is kind of like where we're going with in that aspect of like, I will throw on something on YouTube. I will listen to something and I zone out. Like I just listen to what I'm listening to. I'm trying to stay in the presence of like whatever I'm listening to, whatever I'm watching. I'm not looking going, oh, I'm only 5 minutes in. I still have another hour. Or, oh, I'm only 5 miles in. I have another 25 miles or, and you know, and I think everybody on here listening knows, I do want to potentially do the 100-mile treadmill challenge or a 48-hour treadmill challenge. And for me, like I'm stoked because at one point I'm going to get on there and it's going to suck. And I'm kind of excited because it's never sucked on a treadmill for me yet. But I also know like when it comes to like a lot of my athletes will ask me like, how do you get on the treadmill? I just can't do it. And I have told them multiple times, like, you just can't think about it. Like you can't think about like, oh, I have a treadmill run later today. It's going to be for X amount of time. I don't feel like doing it. Like you just get on the thing, you start running, and you just maybe you have to envision you're outside. I don't know. I don't really struggle with that aspect of it, but it really makes me think about this.
Yeah, I think that is a good example. And honestly, like, I don't think you can have a podcast talking about mindset without throwing the treadmill in there because it is such a mindset factor if you think about it. And I've done some other like indoor biking stuff that was crazy. Like I rode a bike indoors for over 10 hours before. I don't know if I'm up for 100 miles on a treadmill. Like that just sounds really bad, but by the end of the year, you'll have me talked into it, I'm sure.
Mhm, mhm.
But yeah, same thing. Like, and it's so easy, like I said, to like focus on the end of the run, like wanting it to be over when you're on the treadmill, especially because you can see like your time and stuff like that. So my treadmill lets me hide that. So
Mm.
that's the first thing I'll do is hide that. I don't want to see. And then like on my watch, like I'll put it on a different screen where I can't see the time. And again, like that's just because that helps me stay more present. Big YouTube fan because the video can change like every 10 minutes if you want it to,
Mhm,
so
mhm.
it's a little bit easier as far as that goes. But you really just have to figure out what works, what keeps you like doing it because it feels easy, not having the resistance to it, and just do it, just get over it.
Yeah. Yeah, I've always told people, like, you just need to get on it and don't think, just run. Just like you would if you were outside. Like, I used to always get people being like, "I don't know how you run in the heat." And I'm like, "You just do it." Like, I don't know how to explain it. And now I find I'm in this very same situation with the treadmill, and especially this year, like, I have been married to that treadmill, and I get so many people, and they're like, "I just don't get it." And I'm like, "I don't know what there's to get." Like, you just get on the damn thing. I get in the mileage, I get in the time, I get in the vert, and I get off. But I will say, like, I can relate to there are moments where I'm like, oh man, I got to get on the treadmill, and then I remember like why I'm doing it because no offense, I could easily go run outside, and I'm like, well, I have this silly, silly, silly goal of getting in a whole bunch of this year in Florida, so that means I have to get on the treadmill, and that fires me up and it gets me excited to get back on it. But yeah, I've never experienced yet where I'm on that treadmill dreading life, and I'm sure it's gonna happen, but I haven't yet.
I've had some rough runs before where I've just been like I think I would have had a rough run if it was outside or inside.
Mhm.
Because I like the rule of thirds. A third of your runs are okay, a third are great, and then a third are just crappy.
Mhm.
So that's training. But kind of like you, I think it's just a matter of getting on there, just doing it because of the reason why you're doing it. You know that you've got a goal, whether even if that's a 100-mile race or if it's a 100-mile treadmill challenge. I think too, I think a lot of people struggle because the majority of the people that I talk to who are coming to me to be coached as ultra runners, almost all of them like will have a story about how they found trail running and how that they love it. They love being outside. They love being on the trails. And so the treadmill definitely goes directly against that. So I get where they're coming from. But for me, I just kind of look at it as a training tool. So if I
Mhm.
want to go out and have, good trail races, I've just got to put in the time on the treadmill when I have to. And that's what I do.
For sure. And I love that you call it a training tool because I've been told multiple times and it always irks me. And I'm just like, kind of screw you in the nicest way possible. But people will be like, a treadmill doesn't count. I'm like, what do you mean it doesn't count? And that's like a whole nother topic. But it's still so much work. It's not like I'm going on there and not running. Yeah, maybe running in place, but it's a crazy concept to me in that aspect. But I will say, everyone that in my opinion, that probably has such a struggle with it, it's because they love being outside. And I can completely understand that. Like, I would much rather be in the mountains running, enjoying the crazy scenery in front of me. But I live in flat ass Florida and it is nice out here. I'm not trying to downgrade it, but there's just no vert. So if needed be in training for a verti race, the treadmill will do amazing things. Like, it will train you and prepare you in so many possible ways. And if you're a parent and you don't have the ability to like go run outside out of convenience because you have kids, or you have to crunch in a time, and just in case your kids wake up, you need to be near the house, like a treadmill is the best tool in the whole entire world.
Yeah, for sure. And this is stupid, but sometimes I will run on the treadmill because if I'm time crunched versus running outside, even if I run from my house, because the treadmill can be a little bit faster, especially in winter when you're putting on like 7 different layers. Sometimes I can just go get on the treadmill and, not have to deal with a ton of laundry.
Oh, 100%. And I literally just told you this before the call, but like sometimes it's a little too cold here in Florida for me to go running outside, where I'm like, oh, it'd just be nice to be in my garage. That's not as cold. It's a little warmer, which I feel ashamed saying this now as there's a freaking snowstorm in all northern states of the US. But hey, you got to take it when you can sometimes. And I have so many athletes right now that are like, hey, like, I can't run outside. There's ice everywhere. Is a treadmill okay? I'm like, absolutely, go get on that bad boy. And they're like, oh, I hate the treadmill. I'm like, yep, get comfortable.
Yeah. And like, I will say too, I always like it when athletes are like, I'm good with the treadmill. Like, I can do treadmill runs, because then I know that they're going to be able to do some really good specific training for whatever, race that they've picked, especially if they don't like not living in the mountains either. And I ran, a race in Colorado. So I had to embrace the treadmill quite a bit. So that's that growth mindset. It's super beneficial being open to lots of treadmill runs.
100%. And we're not saying if you don't like the treadmill, you have a fixed mindset by any means. But but I will say, being able to get on the treadmill and realizing it is a tool, 100% a good thing to be thinking and to know. Because like a prime example, if you're doing hill work and you don't have the ability to hit a hill that's at a percent grade that is nearby, like you can get something pretty close. Yes, it's flat. Yes, it is stationary and it's moving, but it is still getting the legs a little better primed for that type of trail that you're going to experience. And like going back to like kind of the adjustments and like being adaptable, because I know we kind of like talked about that earlier too, but like sometimes having a treadmill is the thing that you need to be able to be adaptable to. You know what I mean? Like I don't have the trails. You didn't have the trails. We were both racing very verty races that needed to have some type of vert in there. And we did what we could, and that was on a treadmill.
Yeah, for sure. And you kind of made me think about, talking about the fixed and growth mindset again. Something that people should be aware of is that if you feel like you identify with a growth mindset, there may be times where your mindset may shift to a fixed one in certain situations. For example, if you're doing something like crazy, like let's say you're doing the 4x4x48 on a treadmill because you're a crazy person, you may get to a point where you're telling yourself, I'm too tired to do this. I don't want to continue. And so those are like fixed mindset thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
So being able to consciously pivot back to the growth mindset at certain points and just saying, well, what do I need to do in my, recovery window before my next 4-mile run to improve of how tired I am, or how do I recover better in that next window? So I think it's good to point out that like people can shift in between those mindsets as well.
So here's a question. How many people do you think stay in between that? Like have dual aspects of that mindset?
I think it can be common, because if you think about it, I think like just thinking about me personally, I feel like I definitely lean towards growth mindset most of the time. But I feel like every once in a while I may get down about something, and then I get stuck in the fixed mindset. But I feel like because I have more of the growth mindset personality, that I eventually like come around, like I feel like I just sit in the suffering for a while, but then eventually I'm like, oh, I realize, probably journal about it. And then I realize like what I'm doing. What about
For
you?
sure. No, I would say I am very, very similar. Like feel like I'm very growth open mindset, but there are moments in life where I'm like, screw this, I'm horrible, I can't do this, and this is never going to work out. And then I'm like, hold up, hold up, hold up. And like I, kind of backtrack, reassess, readjust. And then I'm like, oh, okay, like you could do this, you can do this. But I think, or I should say this, I do not think there is one person in this world that has 100% a growth mindset. Like,
Yeah.
we are all hard on ourselves. And if they do have that, they might be a psychopath. I'm just going to have to say it. But, I do feel like no matter what, we encounter those incidents where like things just, you're going to struggle. And especially if you're doing hard things, if you're pushing yourself and doing the hard things, like trying to run 100 miles or something of that nature, you're gonna have negative thoughts. You're gonna have that like little bit of a fixed mindset, but we're all hoping, that growth mindset comes into play and helps you get out of that to proceed forward.
Yeah, and you can also use a little bit of delusional self-belief to help you out of it too, Okay, give me a story of a time where you've used delusional self-belief, like that you can think of.
Oh, 100% when I was gonna go after the 200. Like, I'd never
Yeah.
run 200 before. And I I remember in the midst of my 100 miler being like, there's no way I can do this. You know what I mean? And then hearing all of my supporters around me being like, dude, no, you can definitely do this. Joe being one of them, you can definitely run a 200 mile. And I was like, man, that 100 kicked my ass. Like, what are you talking about? And then just like really taking a step back and having delusional self-belief that like, I'm going to give it all I can and I'm going to do everything in my body to get there and do that. Because I remember a couple years ago, I was sitting at a computer and I saw someone run across Florida 200 and I was like, I would love to do that. And then, I saw what the female course record was and I was like, I think I can beat that, having no freaking clue what it would take. And that little spark of like, I bet you I could beat that, was that delusional belief. And I mean, I did really well and it worked out for me. But if I wouldn't have been able to do that, would I have been like completely crushed? No. I think I am that responsible that like it wouldn't have crushed my soul and I would have never been able to do something again. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
What about
Yeah,
you? Do you have
I thought about this, and I have one that I think is good.
Mm.
Like, not to toot my own horn or anything, but um, you know, I don't know if like people probably don't know like my full story. Some people listen to this podcast, but like almost 20 years ago, I started a weight loss journey. I lost over 100 pounds. And so like I think back to that time, and honestly, I had no clue. Like I didn't have a goal of losing 100 pounds when I started that. I just had some delusional self-belief that I could essentially change my entire identity. So I started delusional, but then I would say all I did was I used that delusion to get me like into the gym on the first day and then the
Mhm.
next day and then, continuing the process. So I spent all that time collecting evidence that I could, make that change. So as I lost weight over the course of that, it wasn't really a belief anymore. It kind of became a fact that I could do this. So that's kind of like a good way to show like how you start with the delusional belief, but then as you collect the evidence and the facts along the way that you can do it. And I think that like translates really well to people who are running like their first 100-mile race, for example. Like you don't know when you start that if you can do it, but as you train for it, that's when you build the evidence and you can achieve it. So I think it's like super cool to set goals that seem slightly unachievable, but something that you feel like you can achieve if you do the right things. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Mhm. And I think your story is great and you should toot your own horn, just to be 100% honest with that. Because it is a point in life when you need to change or something, like you have this crazy goal, you know what I mean? And it's you realizing I'm either gonna do it or I'm not. And if I'm gonna do it, you gotta go big. You know what I mean? Because it's gotta be kind of delusional, because you need to step out of that comfort zone. And it could be for a distance in a race, it could be a weight loss journey, it could be a bodybuilding thing, it could be so many different things. But if you just, you know, start out kind of small, like, yeah, maybe I'll do this. And there's less likelihood of you accomplishing something if it's kind of within reach or not so delusional. It needs to be kind of crazy. It needs to kind of be outlandish for you to be like, I'm going to get as close as I possibly can to this.
Yeah, for sure. And like that's something that I had to have a conversation with myself with for this year because I set my goals for the year, like pick what races I was going to do. And I'm just doing, some more 100 milers. And I was like, okay, so I've done 2 of these things now. Is it really a challenge? Like, don't get me wrong, every 100 miler, is hard.
Mhm.
You don't ever know if you're actually going to finish them or not, but you start to become more confident because you've done a couple. And so it's like, okay, I need to push myself to do something that I'm not 100% sure that I could do, but I would like to train to try to do it.
Mhm, mhm.
And then if you don't hit that goal, like that's why A, B, and C goals are super good too, because it's like, okay, this is my A goal. Maybe I can do that. It's going to be really fun trying to do that though. Fun in a type 2 type of way.
Yeah.
But then like if you don't hit that goal, well, you've got your B goal or your C goal. So, and I think like as ultra runners, do you feel like most people do like push themselves like pretty good? Like they're always like progressing, to not necessarily like the next distance, but they're not ever like keeping it like super chill, where it's like, I know I can do this. I'm just going to go out and do it type of deal.
I 100%, or I would say like I have had some people, a few of my athletes that would be like, so I'm kind of thinking I want to finish at like this time, and I'm like, well, why that time? They're like, well, it's within reach. I'm like, what wouldn't be within reach? And then they're like, well, and I was like, because then it gets in thinking like, if all the things go right and the day is the perfect day possible, what would that look like? Because then that pushes you way further than it would be within what is within reach. And I like to do that too a lot. And I feel like that gets the wheels rolling. And then that person will always come to me with outlandish goals, which is what we want. You know what I mean? We want the crazy goal, but we also need the realistic goals too, just in case, because shit can hit the fan and sometimes you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah. And I think too, being realistic with like what's possible. Someone like if I had any athlete come to me and be like, "Hey, do you think I could do a 200-mile race?" I would say yes, because you didn't give me a time frame. So it's like as long as we have the time to train for it, you can do anything.
100%. And, you know, as coaches, I'm sure you get this too. A lot of times I get like an athlete we've been working with and like, do you think we could run a sub something? That
Mhm.
is where maybe more of like the data comes into play, not so much like a prime example. I will never be able to run. I'm not going to say never because that sounds really bad, but I doubt I will be able to run anything under a sub 20-hour anything for 100 miles. And it would just be a lot of work for me. And I don't know if I could get that fast, to be 100% honest. Maybe, yes. But I am not concerned about going fast. I want to do the crazy mountainous things. So for me, it's like, I don't necessarily want to run a flat 100. You know what I mean? So for me, I'm like, where's all the vert? Where's all the technicality? What can I go rip and have some fun that way? But for someone else, if they have a time goal of doing like a sub something, that's when the data comes into play of like, it might be delusional, and that's always a hard conversation you have to have with people. What do you think about that?
So this is where I struggle a lot because some people will tell you like, yeah, I think you can go sub whatever at this race, but the data doesn't back that up.
Mhm.
That's where like I'm a data nerd, so I will get hung on that. So if somebody like tells me like, yeah, you could do this 100 miler in sub, like 20 hours, I'd be like, no, I have no proof at all. Like that is super delusional. So I think it's great to have big goals, but at the same time, like if you're way off base, then some people are good about that, about like shooting for the stars and being like, I'm good with not hitting that. But personally, I struggle with that. Like, I want to pick something very, very hard that I might not be able to achieve, but I want to think that I could train for it and get really close. I don't want to be super far off. So if somebody if is picking like a goal that is, in along those lines, I'm good with that. But when I feel like it's like way off base, it's like you got to have a little bit of realism in this.
Mhm. And as a coach, I will say it's probably one of the hardest things.
Yeah.
I'm a data person as well, so, like, when someone comes to me with, "I wanna finish sub something," and if it's not realistic, I will 100% say, "Well, this is what I see in data, so this is what I predict." Does that mean I could be wrong? Yes, but data wise usually shows more truth in that. But once people see the data and you can explain it to them and say, like, within training, this is what we see, this is where the times are, this is what I anticipate, a lot of people are like, oh, that makes so much sense. And then they're a little more realistic, which is really good. And not saying, again, you shouldn't shoot for the moon a little bit in the sense of like shooting for something that is hard. But what, like you said, we always have to kind of be careful on what we predict, because like I don't want, and I say this to one of my athletes all the time, and hopefully Jim you're listening, but like I may blow rainbows and unicorns up his ass all the time, but it is true data. If there wasn't true data, I would have that hard conversation, and I think that's where like some people just shove rainbows and unicorns up your butt.
Yeah. And the thing too is it's really nice to be able to do that when you do have the data to back it. It's like, listen, this is why I think that, I didn't just make this
Yes.
up. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not judging you, I promise. It is like, here's my proof.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like as coaches, there's like a line that you have to find with that. Like you want to provide information and like goal setting from the data, but also too, you want to not necessarily just be a cheerleader either, but you
Mhm.
want to like push people, you want to motivate people to, achieve those and actually set those harder goals too. So you have to like kind of like ride that fine line between the two.
For sure. So I actually have a coaching question for you.
Oh no.
I know what I do. I'm not going to say it.
Oh
But if
god.
someone comes to you with a, I'm training for my first, or not even first race, but I'm training for this race, how fast do you think I can run it? Do you give an answer?
Obviously, like if they're an athlete that's been with me for a while, I'll probably talk them through a little bit of it. Like, let's see where you're going to be closer to the race, because always like a lot of people want to know that answer.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I think they have every right to know because you build so much of your like nutrition strategies and stuff like that based off of your time, right? Off your pacing. So I always tell people like, this might be the ballpark, like this is the range, but that can potentially change a lot through the training, especially like depending on what they've been doing prior to that.
Hmm.
So I like to like give them something because they, obviously like they're looking for something. But if it's closer to the race, then I will definitely be a little bit more precise with it just because, they're obviously more fit at that point. So what about
Hmm.
you?
So I am very much the same, but this is a little bit of a different approach. If they are newer to me, I say I need to see more data, which is like
Yeah.
what you said. I want to see the data first. If they're someone that's been working with me for a while and or we are close to the race and I know the data, I always ask them, well, what are you thinking first?
Yeah.
Because then I can see how spot on they are if they're super delusional. And then it sounds bad, but I know how to approach the conversation because I've had hard conversations where I'm like, so if I look at data, this is what it's showing me and it's kind of way off compared to what you think. You know what I mean? But I can also say at other times I've been like, honestly, that's right where I thought you were going to be, maybe a little faster to be 100% honest. And they're like, oh, faster? And then they're like super excited that they thought that I thought that. So that would be like my only different approach, but very,
I
very
like
similar to you. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I like that. And I will say too, a lot of athletes when they come to me asking that question, a lot of times they already they'll say like I'm thinking this, so
Yeah.
I haven't had to do that too many times, so that's
Mm,
beneficial. And I'll look at the data and be like, yeah, I agree,
yeah.
or you could
I've
be faster.
yes, I've had to do it quite a bit, and I feel like I feel so bad when I say it too, because I'm like, well, what do you think first? And they're like, well, I was really banking off of what you were gonna. I'm like, I know you have a number. Like I'm a runner. I had a number. I always had a number. We have this number that we envision, and then they'll kind of open up about it. But yeah, I think you kind of mentioned this earlier, but it is inevitable not to have a number or a time goal. I think we're humans. It is unrealistic for us as coaches to think that runners like ourselves don't have a number in mind. But a lot of it boils down to, like you said, like the preparation for like nutrition, where
Mhm.
their crew's going to be. So I am always trying to get an estimation and maybe like best case, potential case, worst case scenarios in those three different aspects. That way they can have like, you know, all things go right, this is ideally where you could be. If all things kind of go to shit, this is also where you could be to prepare for nutrition, crew, pacers, and all of that stuff.
Yeah, and I also think about too, We always say like first time at a distance, your goal should be just to finish, but still you have to make a pacing plan in order to calculate your nutrition, your crew and stuff like that. And I mentioned it on the last podcast, I guess, that when I did Rim to River 100, I kind of like very loosely set a time goal. And because I wasn't super hardcore on it, I walked a lot in like the last 20 miles when I definitely could have run. So I think that's another reason why it's really good to have a time goal. Even if like your real goal is just a finish, like put something on paper that you need to, continue to move in order to hit. That way you don't give yourself like that easy out.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And just knowing that, like, hey, if I could hold this effort or this pace for a little bit, I would potentially finish at this time, which is the time that I planned, is such a boost for the mindset to go after something. It's something to grab onto, to be like, oh, if I could just push it a little bit right here, I could potentially do better. And I think that's a huge, huge thing in that aspect of like how training plans and having like a little bit of a time parameter, we'll say, could be so super beneficial in a race.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure. So we kind of jumped all over the place there with that.
It's like, is this podcast still about mindset? I don't know.
It is. So with that, on that note, what is one thing that we haven't talked about that you want to talk about mindset, or is there anything?
I don't know if we talked about this earlier, but I don't feel like many ultra runners struggle with mindset. Like I feel like they figure that out. If they don't figure it out like already, they'll figure it out through the training. Like I typically find by race time, the training itself is a training of mindset, because you're going to do so many long runs, back-to-back long runs that you don't want to do, that you feel tired for, because that's the whole point. You're going to have that mental training in your actual run training. So I don't feel like a lot of ultra runners really struggle with it. Like I feel like they need a little bit of guidance to like motivate them, understand things, like especially like not creating the suffering. We do that, like all of us do that at some point. I do feel like, do you feel like mindset has become more popular these past couple years?
1,000,000%. Do you think it's become popular because of social media?
Yeah, I definitely think so. Like more people are talking about it, because I'll think back. I'm like 5 years ago. I don't really remember like what. I don't remember thinking about mindset. This is how I operate. Like nobody talked about it, but it seems like it's everywhere now.
Mm-hmm. And it's talked about in so many different aspects, like not only running, it can be like business mindset. You know what I mean? Like having a positive mindset with business in order to grow and become, financially independent, or, it is used in every aspect of life, not only ultra running. But I would agree in the aspect of what you said, like, if someone does have a poor mindset, maybe to say in ultra running, it gets changed real quick, because we do hard things consistently, which makes us grow our mindset and grow our like just mental health in an aspect. But I think a question for you, because like we are coaches, you know what I mean? Like we hold people accountable, whether they even realize it or not. Like I've had so many athletes tell me, I really didn't feel like doing today's run, but I knew you would see if I did it or not. And I don't think we realize as coaches how impactful that is. Do you?
I think I do, only based off my own experience as an athlete as well.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I probably don't think about it on a regular basis, mostly for my athletes, just because that's built in, as part of their coach. Because I'll tell them, I'm like, listen, I will look at your runs like every day. So if you don't do it, like I see it, so, and it's so common too that a lot of them don't want training peaks to be red. They want it to be green, showing that they completed their workouts. So I think that's part of the ultra runner personality too.
Yeah, I agree 100%. We've been there, like we've been coached, we are coached, and there's been multiple times where we look at something, we're like, they're gonna see this, I have to get this run in. But I do say, like, before I ever got into coaching, I was like, I don't need someone to hold me accountable. I just want someone to teach me the running aspect, because I was unsure of ultras, and then now, I will say, like, I know there are people that come to me and they go, I just need to be held accountable. And I feel like that's super vulnerable for someone to say, like, I do lack at this, and I know if you're going to be watching me, I'm going to do this stuff, which is awesome. But now I feel like some athletes I've been working with forever, they're so consistent. I'm like, you've never needed someone to hold you accountable. You just maybe need to get this into a routine, and you have, and now you're crushing it. But a part of me always wonders, like, but is it me? Am I the reason that they continue to do it? And I'm not saying me in general, but like a coach holding them accountable.
Yeah, and it makes me think about, I saw this the other day and it was really good. You see a lot of people talk about motivation versus discipline. I saw
Mhm.
something that was talking about discipline versus systems. And I really like that
Mm.
because like, we all get motivated. Like we watch a ultra doc and we're super motivated to do, our first ultra race, and then you sign up for a coach who gives you that accountability, but ultimately you build that discipline along the way where you get to the point that you don't need the accountability anymore. You just wake up every day and you go for your run. Like it's kind of like getting on the treadmill. Like it's not a second thought. But ultimately you're building systems in your life in order to have all that discipline. So I think that's part of it too, is that some people do need the accountability, but I think over time, as they do it, they build the discipline and the systems in their life to sustain that.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I literally just listened to a book that was all about like the perfect day, and the perfect day starts with putting in habits and systems in order to consistently like do things without that stressor of mentally thinking about what you need to do because you have a system in place. So mentally you're not wasting that energy on trying to figure out like what to do next. You have a system in place. You do this, it's non-negotiable, and it makes for just like less fatigue, less mental fatigue, and then you're rocking and rolling. So I agree 100%. I think motivation's shit. I'm never motivated half the time. I'm a coach, I'm a runner. I don't want to run sometimes, like it happens. I'm not motivated. It's a little chilly outside. I don't want to go outside and be cold. But I have a system and I know I need to do A, B, and C, and that's what it is. And the system isn't always in place 100% to the T, but there is a little bit of a system in there that always makes me go do my run.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Anything else you can think of?
On mindset or any of the other 10 topics we
I
talked
mean, we should probably go back to mindset and stick a little bit with that.
No, I mean, I think if you are questioning your mindset, like if you're questioning the different things that we talked about, like the delusional self-belief, like fixed mindset, growth mindset, and then, suffering being optional, just think about that stuff in your daily journaling, write that down in your journal. And I think that's beneficial too, like writing down your thoughts and seeing where they go as far as, do you feel like you do need to shift in your mindset, if you do need to think differently. And something I'll say too, in the book, The Power of Now, which, I said I love,
Mhm.
one of the things that hit me in that book was, and I've read this elsewhere, that, you're not your thoughts. And it really talks about you're not your brain. You have a being inside of you, and your brain is not that. So
Mhm.
I think like disconnecting from that as well, like can really help, especially if you struggle with creating like that extra suffering. And like the thoughts that pop up in your mind of like, I can't do this. I don't want to do this run. That's not you. So I think thinking about that can be super beneficial as well.
Yes, for sure. Being able to maybe detach from that in an aspect to realize like I hate using this term, but like we are human and yet we have this conversation almost at all times. And also too, like on the process or on the thought of fixed mindset, I have to say this because this is an example. I know of a few people I've encountered and had conversations, and I was like, oh, that's a fixed mindset. But you can never say that to someone because that sounds so horrible. But if you can catch yourself having that fixed mindset, you can easily fix it. Like I've known people that were like, I could never run this. I could never do that. And if I could just, and like, I've simply been like, well, what do you mean? Why? There's always usually something underneath that's like giving them that delusion of like they can't do something, or the negative aspect. And sometimes you just need to have that hard conversation with yourself, journaling it out, or having a chat with someone to really find out like why you're so fixed that you cannot do that. I hate to bring it up and say it, but like sometimes it's some horrible thing in the past that happened to you, some trauma that like you've just put on yourself and have kind of belittled yourself to not being able to do something. And if you can get out of that and figure it out, like you could potentially become so much more than what you actually are.
Yeah, for sure. I like that.
Yeah. All right. Well, I got to go now, and you know that. So, as always, thank you for being on the podcast. If you want us to pick a certain topic and talk about something coaching related, anything of that norm, hit me up on social media or hit up Christie, and we will hopefully get to another podcast sooner than like a month and a half later. So, we'll see.
Yeah, I need to continue my professional co-hosting. So
Yeah. We need people to be like, yeah, she needs to be the co-host. So Liz sucks solo. We need Christie.
like they just want to hear us ramble for hours.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, I've said this to you, and we're both like, we probably should never do it, but like one of these conversations is going to be like a shit talkers, and we're just going to talk so much shit. I'm so excited. And then we'll probably never have an episode afterwards because we're going to get canceled. So
yeah, for sure.
Yes. Well, as always, thank you so much for being on the podcast, and I look forward to another amazing conversation down the road.
Thanks.